Good evening and welcome to tonight's Facebook Live on grounding our service. And there seems to be quite a bit of interest in this. The questions that people have asked that want a little clarity, a little guidance, should be good. Hi Sonia, Ola, Haresh, Elaine, Pia, Anita, good to have you here. Hi Amanda, Tracy, goodness, there are a few of you already in. Ola. So there's been quite a few questions that people sent to me about this topic. We've now got Juliet, Clara, Marianne, Caroline. So grounding our service is actually a bit of a contradiction in terms. Hi Karen, hi Glynis. Because, hi Yumiko, because as somebody said, how do you define the difference between work, whether that's a career or a business, and service? That's a little bit ahead of where I want to start, but certainly it's relevant. Hi Cynthia, nice to have you join us. So let's go through some of the questions that I've been asked about this, and I'll fill in what I mean by grounding our service as we go. And if you've got any questions that you're interested in asking, type it in, and if we've got time, we'll get to it. So one of the questions I was asked was, what do I mean by service? And does who or what we are in service change depending on our consciousness or intent? Okay, I want to talk about two things here. I want to talk about purpose and service. So we all incarnate with a purpose. How we fulfill that purpose is our service. Our service doesn't become our purpose. The purpose is what initiates our service. It's probably the best way to put it. So, if you are clear what your purpose is, and we've talked about that in other Facebook Lives, then it's quite likely that how you fulfill that purpose has opened up a path for you to walk that becomes your service. It's not always that clear, but quite often it is. And so in that situation, who or what we are in service can change, not depending on our consciousness, because it's steady, but depending upon our intent. Hi Sarupa, nice to have you join us. So, what do I mean by service? Exactly that. It's the path that I use to fulfill my purpose. Is it about what other people expect of me or require of me? No. It's about what my soul, my intuition and my guidance tell me I'm here to fulfill, or keep prompting me to fulfill. Because sometimes we may sense what our purpose is, but for whatever reason, we don't fully claim it. We don't believe it. It might seem as though it's too big, it's too good to be true. None of that actually applies, but as we're in the process of developing and growing ourselves, it can seem to be the situation. So, if you know what your purpose is, then how you choose to be that in the world is your service. It's the means by which your purpose takes form and life in your day-to-day. And therefore, your consciousness, even though it may evolve, won't change who or what you are in service. It can enhance it, but it won't change it. but the intent that you have at a certain point in time as you follow the path may. So I hope that answers that, brings a bit more clarity. And then, of course, what do I mean by grounding it? For me, when we ground something, it becomes part of our day-to-day. Somebody may say to me, I'd love to be able to meditate. And so my answer would be, if you practice every day doing a meditation, even if it's only for 10 or 20 minutes, you ground your ability to meditate. You bring it into this reality and it becomes a part of who you are and of what you do. So that's what I mean by grounding it. It's not about the degree to which you complete or fulfill anything. It's your application of it and your commitment to it. So they're two good words, aren't they? Application and commitment. And sometimes we have one and we don't have the other. Another question I was asked was, how can you tell that what you have said yes to that hasn't fallen away is service and not a distraction? If it's something you've said yes to, if it's still present, and if in the fulfilling of it or the acting upon it, you feel you are contributing to the people around you, or that you're enhancing your own purpose, it's not a distraction. Even if it's not the exact path you need to follow, it will be relevant because it's an opportunity to learn how you want to follow that path. I'm a great believer that if something is still present, it has a meaning and it has a purpose. That purpose may not be to live your purpose, but it will have a purpose in helping you to be clear in who you are and what your purpose is. Okay, Anita says thank you, because that was Anita's question. Okay. Amanda says, how to stay grounded? Is it a continuous choice? Yes, it is. Because we live in a world where there are so many things coming at us all of the time. It's very easy to get out of balance. And when we get out of balance, we're no longer grounded. Because one element or another is more predominant, we don't have our feet to the floor. It knocks us off our feet. And so we're not grounded. So how do you stay grounded? I think I touched on that with Anita's question, is by practicing every day. But what are you practicing? It's not about practicing meditation. It's about practicing being present. It's about when there's an interaction occurring, looking at the significance of the interaction and not necessarily the event of it. What's really happening here, not what appears to be happening. So it's a continuous choice to be present in every moment and not to allow ourselves to be floating off on some wonderful cloud somewhere, having a great time. Yes, it's good to go off and float sometimes, but where you're grounded, it's about the awareness that you have, not just of who you are, but of how you're choosing to interact with those around you. I think a great question we could all ask ourselves is, what do we stand for? Because obviously where we stand is where our understanding is. What do we stand for? And when we know what we stand for and we practice that, we'll always be grounded. So I hope that answers that question for you, Amanda. Sarupa says, is there a difference between purpose and service? I touched on this earlier. And how best to understand that? Yes, there is a difference. As I've said, the purpose is what we incarnate with. And service is how we live it. Sarupa's saying it's so key to get to the significance and stop ourselves stopping at appearance and something to continue to develop. Yeah, it is. It's very easy to take everything at face value. If you want to be grounded, then perhaps one of the things to pay attention to is never take everything at face value. Because, there used to be a saying, the camera doesn't lie. Well, filmmaking has developed so fantastically, certainly in my lifetime, that you will be shown something and you will think it's real. In fact, there was a movie about it. And yet, it's all been created in a studio. When you look at something that isn't real, it feels off. That's the only way I can describe it. There's a sense that it's not quite there, not quite aligned. Hi, Trudy. I've got Trudy Mason, Jason Melvin. I don't know if that's one person, 4 people, and I'm sorry that I don't know, but hi and welcome. So if you want to be grounded, be clear about your purpose, but be clear about how you step forward and what comes to you. Because the universe, spirit, your guides, your teachers, however you want to phrase it, are continuously sending you messages to help you maintain your alignment and maintain that sense of being grounded in the reality of spirit, not necessarily the appearance of the physical world. And that sounds as though the physical world is bad. It's not. We are here to navigate it. We're here to bring light into the physical and illuminate it. So, yes, Sin, it's a challenge for many people to stay grounded. So, Sarupa, I hope that clarifies a little bit for you, because if you know what your purpose is, how you fulfill it is your service. If you try to fulfill a service but you don't have clarity around what your purpose is, you will be challenged. You'll keep falling over. Or you'll say, this week, this is my purpose, and then next week something will happen and you'll say, oh, perhaps that's my purpose. And so you'll jump around from one thing to another, trying to find it. Start with your purpose and then look at how you can take it out into the world. So Orla says, for our service to be effective, our foundation needs to be strong. How can we work with the earth element to achieve this? Well, you're very true. Yes, if we want to be effective, we're only as effective as we are anchored in who we are and what we're here to do. So if that foundation isn't strong, if we are standing on a shaky foundation, we will struggle. We'll be up and down like a yo-yo, which is not what any of us wants to do. And sometimes being grounded isn't comfortable. When you're not comfortable, you know you're making progress. That's the best thing I can say to that. So how can we work with the earth element? The earth element is all about having our feet on the floor. It's being present, it's being in the moment, it's being practical. So the more you are practical in how you apply your service, the more grounded you are, the more the element of earth supports and sustains. But it's also about flexibility. You know, in astrology, there are 3 aspects to each element. There's the cardinal aspect, or the initiating aspect. There's the fixed aspect where we consolidate. And there's the mutable aspect where we're flexible, where we move in transition from one thing to another. Being in the present and being aware of what's occurring around us gives us the opportunity to be flexible. If we dig our heels in, literally dig our heels into the earth and say it has to be this way and no other or else, we're not quite setting a solid foundation. But if we say to ourselves, I'm going to set up a routine every day that reminds me to be present, reminds me of where I am, helps me to be present to what's occurring around me and not to fall into appearance. That practical routine keeps you grounded. And that practical routine builds your foundation again and again and again. So I hope that answers that question. And the second question that Orla asked was, is grounding our service about our connection to the planetary being? For those who know about the planetary being, yes. Thanks, Orla. Yes, she says she's found a practical routine very helpful. If you know about the planetary being, then yes, but there are millions of people in the world who are in service and do wonderful service that have no idea what the planetary being is and probably could care less. Doesn't stop their service being effective. It doesn't prevent them grounding it. For them, there'll be something else that they feel that they're connecting to as part of that service. For us, who know about the planetary being and the energy of that being, who perhaps are part of the Harmony 21 group, so we send energy out to the world every month, connecting to the planetary being enhances that experience for us. But it doesn't have to be a prerequisite or a condition. Indeed, the fewer conditions we place around our service, the better for us and for those that we wish to help. So these are the questions that people wrote in and asked me. Does anyone else have anything, or is there something that you feel I haven't touched on that you'd like me to touch on tonight? Because if so, I'm quite happy to do that. This is Earth. What we're doing here with the Facebook Lives is the Earth element. And in doing these Facebook Lives, that's helping me to ground my service so that I have, through this channel, a way of sharing insights and information that might help people. So that's another example. Doesn't mean you've all got to go out and do Facebook Lives, although of course if you do, that's spreading your light too. But it's just putting things in place like this that are practical, that are helpful. Doesn't look as though anyone's got any other questions. I'll just wait a moment to see if anybody wants to ask anything, but wow, okay. Is there an audiobook I can begin with? Just one moment before I keep going. There isn't an audiobook that we produce. I'm sure if you looked on Amazon, you would find something. We have a lot of resources on our Facebook pages because we do these Facebook Lives and things, but there's a lot of information out there that you could find that would help you to develop. And if you want any more information, or if I can help in any way, send me an email to helen@insightteachings.com and I'll be delighted to explore that with you, Trudy. Okay, Anita says what she got from what I was saying was acceptance. Yeah. Elaine, if you find keeping a routine difficult, does it mean that you're not grounded? I love that one, because we all have times where, with the best of intentions to put a routine in place, something comes up and we don't do it. And the reason we don't do it is because the water element within us is stronger. You know, like you go to the beach and you step into the ocean and it's really good, and then suddenly you'll feel a bit of an undertow. When you have a routine that you find difficult to keep, the undertow is the emotional body saying, I don't want to do this, it's not fun. I'm not enjoying it. So if you find your routine difficult to keep, what I'd like to suggest is that you literally play with how you could do it in a more fun way, how you could bring something into it that inspires or engages you, that you want to do it. Some people like to get up and watch the sunrise and they feel inspired and energized. Other people don't want to be up that early. They'd rather do things in the evening. Some people like to walk in nature. Others like to do things with a group, so they're not doing anything on their own. And often you'll find in a group, you kind of carried along by the group. So I would suggest, Elaine, that you look for how you can inspire yourself in your routine by making it a bit more light-hearted, literally, and a bit more fun. Thanks, Amanda. I'm glad that you find the lives profound and practical. And thank you, Sin. Thanks, Juliet. Okay, so... Oh, hi, Wendy. Nice to see you. So it doesn't look as though anybody's actually got any questions. Oh, here we go. Trudy said she can do 2 days and then off track. She can't follow through with anything she decides to do. I would say that it's deeper than just a routine, Trudy. And I would suggest that if you know someone that you can talk to, that can help you to understand why that's happening, you'll be able to shift it. Because for you to only be able to do a couple of days and then go off track, there's something else you need to do first. It's not that there's something wrong with you, but there is something more significant that you can do first that will then make the rest flow more easily. Amanda says, does the emotional body also get scared and doesn't do it because of fear? Our emotional body loves to be afraid. Absolutely loves to be afraid. You know, how many times do we sit and watch movies and we know something's going to happen and all of a sudden the music starts to get really freaky, and do we switch TV over? Do we go somewhere else? No. We like being frightened. So it'll use fear, because fear doesn't bother the emotional body. It'll use fear to upset our balance. However, behind the fear is something more. So the more that you can understand what that more is, and usually where spirituality is concerned, in my experience, what people are really afraid of is that they have to make a commitment that makes them too spiritual, that people might think they're kind of woo-woo or weird. Or certainly that was my fear when I first started. And I'm not suggesting this is what everybody does, but I got around it when people were asking me what I did. I got around it by saying, oh, well, I'm weird, I do this. I claimed it. And because I claimed it, I stopped being afraid of being weird. And then it just became natural to see myself as weird, which I still do. So yes, it can get scared, but that's where you can bring in your mental body, kind of like a parent, to reassure and encourage it to be willing to move forward. You know, we have 4 elements, so we can use all 4 of them. We can inspire ourselves with the fire. If I do this, this is what I'm going to achieve, and this is where I'm going to be arriving. It's never, we're not one-dimensional, we never have been. Haresh says, how can we increase our awareness to include those around us? It doesn't seem to come naturally always. And I believe that's an important part of service. Absolutely. Because if you are not aware of those around, your service is about you. It's not about what you're taking into the world. It's about you and your world, if you like. So, so to increase your awareness to include people around is quite simple. Something like picking up the phone and saying, hi, your name came into my head today and I thought I'd give you a ring and see how you are. Or when people are talking to you, hear what they're saying, not the words. Because often someone will say something and the words make it sound as though everything's wonderful. But if you're really listening, you'll hear that it's not. And at that point, you've got a choice. You can say, it doesn't sound as though you're happy with what you've just said, or you can choose to say nothing, but do something of a practical level that helps them to feel better about who they are or more connected to you. If you're not aware of what's going on with people around you, then your service is going to be affected. It's not that you're not in service, but your service is going to be affected and it's going to be limited. So that's a very good point, Haresh. Thank you. Sarupa wants to know if we can have another live on the topic of service. If people want it, yes, we can. And we can do it if everybody sends me questions so we know what we're talking about. Amanda says she doesn't like being frightened. No, neither do I. But you know what? We live in a world where often frightening things happen. So it's how we cope with it. It's not suppressing it, it's how we cope with it. So Trudy says hers is all about fear. Fear is a big one for a lot of people, and yet in many ways it's an illusion. Because just as service is the outcome of purpose, fear is the outcome of something else. There's something else behind it that throws up fear as a smokescreen to keep us safe. Elaine says weirdo. I like that. I like that. And yes, Marianne, turn the TV off when it's frightening, except we never do we? We sit there or we hug a cushion or we hug our partners or whatever. But fear serves a purpose. Let's not make fear the bogeyman. It serves a purpose. It's telling us that we're not grounded. If we're afraid, we're not grounded. And if we're not grounded, it's very hard then to be practical in how we go forward. Because we're not standing in the fullness of who we are, we're standing in the fear of who we are. Well, I hope that's been beneficial to all of you. I've really enjoyed the questions and the interaction. If there are any topics that you would like us to cover, please put it on the comments below and we'll see how we can fit it in and take it further. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope you all have an excellent day or evening, depending on where you are in the world. Oh, Trudy wants to know, when did I start my journey? Over 30 years ago, and it's still continuing. I haven't got there yet. So thank you. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.